Irish Illustrated Insider is sponsored by Visit Southbend.com. Is it time to check a Notre Dame home game off your bucket list? Has it been too long since you've soaked in the game day atmosphere in person? Whether it's for the first time ever or in a while, start planning your trip to South Bend to watch the Fighting Irish with ideas and inspiration at visitsouthbend.com.
This is Irish Illustrated Insider. Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley, Pete Sampson here, back from Las Vegas, where Notre Dame claimed a 28-20 victory over Brigham Young. BYU is a good ball club, but Notre Dame was the better team pretty much the whole night. They couldn't shake them because they struggled in the red zone, which is atypical of what Notre Dame did in the first four games. But guys, just your reflection on Notre Dame winning 28-20. That's 3 games in a row. Marcus Freeman evens his career record. He's at 500 now for the first time at 3-3, and Notre Dame moves on with opportunities here coming up at home against Stanford and UNLV.
Besides Michael Mayer and greatness personified, I want to bring up what Priester said while we were walking in. It's like, in our instant analysis pregame, we should probably bring up Drew Pyne, since we didn't talk about him at all during the week or during our podcasts. And Drew Pyne is clicking, and he continues to click. This was a better defense, not a great defense, but a much better defense than North Carolina. He is we're at 2.5 really good games of football, at least 2 games of really good football and 1 game of winning football, or half of winning football. And I think Drew Pyne is going to continue to click for the next 2 football games too. That the way they have found something in that offensive line and running game, and Reese with Pyne working together. Interested to watch the Syracuse games coming up, because I think that's the next one that could present a problem. And then obviously Clemson presents a problem to everybody, because they can offset Notre Dame's offensive line.
Came out of Saturday very confident they'll be 6-2 going into Clemson, which, like, from a reporter's point of view, you want to cover games of like some national significance. That game would be of national significance if Notre Dame was 6-2. I am completely shocked and blown away by Drew Pyne making plays, not just managing the game, not just throwing to open receivers that Reese schemes up, but throwing guys open. And that is something that I don't think we saw Ian Book do a whole lot of. Didn't see Tyler Buchner in a very limited sample size, obviously, but Pyne is just it. His performance is shocking to me. I don't know. I can't say enough positive things about the way that he has played, relative to maybe what our expectations were of him when the season started, and then when he replaced Tyler Buchner. Defensively, I still have not moved off my Notre Dame secondary. Are they good position? Like, I still can't figure it out, and we're 5 games into the season.
I think they're mostly good, except when they give up a 53-yard play and a
other than that
70-yard play. They're mostly good. But it's funny you bring up Ian Book, Pete, because I mentioned it today. Well, first of all, since the 4-for-9 start in his first start against Cal, Drew Pyne's completed 77% of his passes. And I brought up Book because a couple things struck me when I got home late last night and started rewatching the game. There are 3 things in 3 starts that Drew Pyne does that Ian Book didn't over the course of his career at Notre Dame. Number 1, he'll stand in there and take a hit, and he can be accurate even when he takes a hit. Number 2, he's patient in the pocket, which Ian Book never was. And number 3, if you give him time, and he's had a lot of time to throw, he actually goes through his progressions, and if somebody's open, he will find him. And those are great assets to have. And I thought he's gotten better every game. And I thought that he really showed he's poised, he's calm. The whole scan offense that Jason Garrett talked about, and then I asked Marcus Freeman about today, is working to their favor. There are various tempos. Normally when we say tempo, we mean fast, but I know that Tommy Reese and Marcus Freeman will look at this as tempo can be several different levels of speed, and they're using it to their advantage. But Drew Pyne's doing a great job. I don't know, Pete, that I'm like as shocked as you are, but I mean, if I don't admit that there's some surprise there, then that would be disingenuous. He's done a hell of a job.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, what would you say? You thought he was a 50% passer.
Well, I said I thought that he would be originally I said I thought he'd be a slightly more accurate thrower than Tyler Buckner, and that's way off. He is.
Yeah.
And remember that I initially predicted Buckner in August that he'd be a 58, 59% passer. And right now, Drew Pyne's working at a 77% clip in the last since that 4-9 start against Cal.
He's on pace. Like his current quarterback rating and accuracy rating both would be single season records at Notre Dame. I mean, that's shocking. That has to be shocking. That could only be shocking.
If a guy's open, he hits him, and he's on time with everything. He gets rid of the football. He goes from deciding to throw to releasing it. Now Buckner did that too. I remember using that expression with him. But when he's made up his mind, he gets rid of it. I think he's more decisive than Tyler Buckner was.
Yep.
I understand Marcus Freeman. He was asked today about, in retrospect, would you still have starred Tyler Buckner? And Marcus Freeman said exactly what he should have said, and the only thing that he could say. But
Marcus Freeman told exactly the truth. In August, Tommy Rees said, we were looking at our offense. We saw what Tyler Buckner was doing in a particular scrimmage and said, this is what I want our offense to look like.
Agreed.
I guarantee you they never looked at Drew Pyne and said, this is what we want our offense to look like until the North Carolina game.
No, and I understand that completely, because when you look at the two just back in August or in the summer or whatever, you look at that and say, who has the highest upside? Well, Tyler Buckner appears to have the highest upside, largely due to his athleticism. Pardon me?
Was Drew Pyne even very good in practice when we've never come away from practice saying how great Drew Pyne was?
No, not great, but he was better in the red zone on day one.
Yeah, but I seem to remember people being very pissed at me pointing that out.
Yes.
We've also talked about how he gets swallowed up by the rush, and he throws the ball directly to Maris Leafau, who looks like Lawrence Taylor.
Right, he gets passes batted down, which is still an issue and will continue to happen, of course. But he doesn't run very often. Remember, somebody asked about, were you surprised that they didn't run more read option in the Cal game? With no, because he's not a fleet of foot runner, but when he does run, the one time it was a 3rd and 4 and it was clutch. You certainly, there's an element of surprise when he does choose to tuck it and run.
He is going to have 8 of the most important rushes of the season probably for Notre Dame this year over the next 8 games, and that he's going to have about 10 total runs, and they're all going to be important because he's not going to do it when he absolutely doesn't need to do it. He did it against Carolina in crucial situation, and he did it against BYU. Yeah. The most important thing, I think, Pete, you said there is that was his best game by far. North Carolina allowed him to throw passes to people. Drew Pyne threw people open in this game where 3 times I said, what a throw. And Priester, of course, added, that was a pretty great catch, which it was, but they expect Michael Mayer to make that catch.
Right. It was both. Think about the second touchdown pass to Mayer. Even the first one, he had a bigger window there.
The third down was even better. Like the 3rd and 10 that he threw for 11, it was just in that little tiny window. I did not expect that from him.
And the conversion, the 12-yard conversion pass to Thomas, he had to scan and wait and be patient. And his patience, again, it helps because their O-line's blocking like crazy. But his patience, I've never really cared for the whole happy feet phrase, because a lot of time, a quarterback's keeping his feet moving so that he's prepared when it is time when he triggers and throws. But he is a calm, patient guy back there. And I thought Jason Garrett did a tremendous job of explaining scan offense and the things that are going through a quarterback's head, and how Tommy Rees's offense is allowing Drew Pyne to be patient. There's a lot going on Saturday, and Drew Pyne was really, really good. We could talk a lot about him. Let's go on to a couple other guys. Jaden Thomas. I wrote this in today's Tail of the Tape. I don't care if Jaden Thomas gets a offensive pass interference call every now and then. Be physical and attack the football, and that's what he did on the 30-yard touchdown.
Yeah, that was a great catch. I thought it was Holton Stays because it just looked like a big dude out muscling someone else, and I was secretly rooting for it because that was my pregame pick to click. But it was Jaden Thomas, and the big development. I said on post-game instant analysis to Priester, I still think him finding a way to get open on that third down might be even a better sign, because that means he's starting to understand some things, knowledge of it. A lot of receivers make one big play. You know, it was good to see him kind of evolve from it.
They only really need him to be like essentially a fifth receiver, and in the sense of like Mayer is a receiver, two backs are receivers, like. So if he's able to do that every now and again, like if Jaden Thomas finishes the year with like 300 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, like I think that would be enough for him to have a productive sophomore year in the context of how Notre Dame's offense is built, and that'd be a positive sign moving forward too.
I really, from a mile above the stadium, it's difficult to see everything and all the things that are going on in our head and the angles that we're looking for. But I really, really, really loved when I rewatched the game and saw just how physical and between the tackles oriented Logan Diggs was. He has to recognize, I mean, he is so good in open space that if he gets through that first wave, there are breakaway opportunities on the second level and the third level. So I was really, really excited for him and for Notre Dame's offense to see how physically he ran, because only one time, there was only one run where he kicked it outside, but he was going to lose yardage on that play, and he outran the guy to the corner because, as we knew, BYU was susceptible to on the perimeter. So I was really, really, Tim, I know you came away from North Carolina really impressed with Diggs in the running game. I didn't feel that way. This way, I definitely come out of it feeling like he took a major, major step to being a more consistent running back.
He did.
I'm pretty sure I'm 100% with you on that. Like, I didn't see it at North Carolina enough to really change my mind, but I saw enough against BYU to change my mind on Logan Diggs.
And then I think there's people, just ardent fans are upset with Chris Tyree that he didn't have a good game, and he did not have a good game. But I would expect Chris Tyree to bounce back and have a good game.
He had a bad game. I don't think he's healthy.
Logan Diggs had a terrible game against Marshall. Now look at him.
Yeah.
He had the only 0% rushing efficiency in the history of Pete Sampson. Right?
I don't think you. Okay, we did see Tyree. I wondered as I was rewatching the game whether the TV version showed that he hurt his ankle, which it did. I remember I saw it during the game, Tim, and I said he's hurt. Yeah. And again, everybody has to remember we are a mile high up there, and so we don't. While everybody else is watching it on TV, there's a lot of stuff that we don't see, which is why there are snap judgments after the game, and then there's tail of the tape, because you can't see everything from a stadium. Third down success, 19 for 29 in the last 2 games, 11 for 16 Saturday. They start out 0-2, so they were 11 for 14 on third down, which is phenomenal against anybody. If that was like you do that against North Carolina, you don't think much of it. You do it against BYU, which I think is a pretty damn good, well-coached football team, although I think there were some things that maybe defied how well-coached they were at times, but that's going to happen. But great on third down, great fourth down stop when the game was on the line. Pathetic red zone touchdown offense, which is why the overshooting.
While we were in Las Vegas, of all
places, which is why I lost the over bet in Vegas, because that game should have been easily in the 50s and perhaps in the 60s.
Chris Tyree, 8.5 yards. They're not easy. They're never easy. I would like to point out that I chart all the third down distances, and we will get into that on in our question and answer with the short yardage failures. Notre Dame from kind of medium, which is 4 to 6 yards, you could hand it off. You're probably passing it. The last 2 games is 12 out of 14 in third between 4 and 6 yards. 12 out of 14, including, I believe it was the last 6. Yeah, 6 straight against Brigham Young. That's moving the chains, because if you're successful on first down, you should have a lot of 3rd and 4 to 3rd and 6, right?
It just is it not bizarre to you that their 3rd and short is actually worse than their 3rd and medium?
Way worse. It's way worse. We have a question on that, Pete, and I'm going to talk about it in depth. Yeah, it's very strange.
I've got something for it on that I again didn't recognize until I saw the film, and
also
we'll get into that.
One. They have been in 3rd and 10 3 times in 3 games in the last 3 games. That's it. So they stay completely out of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Hey, before we finish segment one, two things. One, we were at Circus Sports, which sponsored our podcast for about a month, and that place is. I've got nothing to sell now. Notre Dame's not going to Vegas. Circus Sports is first of all, Vegas itself and everything is awesome. The Cirque du Soleil Beatles love was amazing for me, but Circus Sports, the stadium swim is unbelievable. And so, I mean, this is I recommend everybody checking that place out. We thank them for sponsoring us for about a month. But the other thing I wanted to mention was Jacob Lacey. I was on a plane when that was about to break. Irish Illustrated was aware of that in advance, but the timing of everything and then trying to be respective of Lacey's situation and wanting to announce it. But we knew earlier in the week that there was a strong possibility that was going to happen. And I called it the heartbreaking story of Jacob Lacey, because Jacob Lacey did not want to stop playing football at Notre Dame, but he had to make a decision in his best interest to preserve a year of eligibility moving forward.
It was a bit of a double whammy because that Howard Cross, the starter, who he would have started for, was out, and I'm sure Jacob Lacey saw that and was not happy with the timing. But it's interesting to me. Two things can be true. Jacob Lacey felt he had to do that, and he's an informed graduate of Notre Dame that had enough both sides of the equation to make his decision. And two, it hurts the Notre Dame team in the short term this year.
Yeah, I guess I haven't really dug into this, but was there any thought to him redshirting this year?
Yes, but redshirting, he has redshirted this year. That's why the timing.
No, I mean at
Notre Dame,
stay on the team, and then you start the next 2 years at Notre Dame.
I never heard that, because I mean, obviously there was a fairly high degree of disgruntlement that he was losing snaps to a bigger, younger player, and that bigger, younger player, Gabe Rubio, holds the point of attack, but he's going to have to get out blocks better than he did on Saturday. And Chris Smith, same way. I mean, when that 28-yard touchdown run, when Chris Smith has to move laterally for outside zone, that's not a good match.
Yeah, so it's bad timing. Lacey obviously would have been heavily involved in this game, and had he not decided to transfer yet, he probably wouldn't have, because he would have started a game. Maybe would have played. It's really weird. It's the thin line for everything. Since it's not an easy decision, you have to think starting a game and playing well and winning at BYU in Las Vegas would put you over the top to stay another year, because then you still have another year. Yeah. That was always the strangest thing to me. He still has another year somewhere else. Maybe if you don't lose to Marshall, do you stay? What if Notre Dame is number 9?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Question.
We know it was a difficult decision, and I don't know about you guys. I mean, I think it's the same. All of my interactions with Jacob Lacey, I mean, I really appreciate the kid and think that he's a Notre Dame guy. And
well, he played through a lot to start, because
he did.
They had nothing in 2019, and he
right, and he was hurt, and they needed him, and he was injured. Good enough. He was injured. He was injured, and he played through it. And so, if you're Jacob Lacey, yeah, you feel shortchanged. I get that. I get that. And I think we all feel the same about him, and we hope the best for him. Coming up, Burning Up the Boards, segment 2.
Burning Up the Boards is brought to you by Game Day Your Way. Notre Dame football fans, make your trip to South Bend easy this fall with the help of Game Day Your Way. Services include tailgates, transportation, tickets, and more, making Game Day your one-stop shop for Notre Dame football weekend. Learn more at GameDayYourWay.com and use promo code IrishPod22 to save 10% on your tailgate package. Segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. First question comes from Terry Benedict. Very timely after the Michael Mayer show. How does Tommy Rees scheme Michael Mayer open when everyone in the stadium knows where the ball is going?
That's something I was kind of looking at in this game, because of course they were force feeding Michael Mayer even more than normal. But I think there's a variety of things. They do the bunch stuff, the bunch sets with 3 guys, and when you put him in the back of that bunch, you can hide him a little bit. First and foremost, how's he do it? Because Michael Mayer just gets open. I mean, he gets open more. He gets open better than any wide receiver that Notre Dame has on the roster, or plays even better than Lorenzo Styles. So that's part of it. And I just think, I mean, I'm not sure everybody's going to agree with this, but if you look at the variety that Tommy Rees's offense offers in terms of personnel groupings and pre-snap alignments and post-snap activity, there is a large variety of things that they do with Michael Mayer, tucking him underneath people, having other receivers tuck underneath him. There's a lot to consider with Notre Dame's pass routes. And then Michael Mayer's just so stinking talented that he finds ways.
I mean, I think it's worth acknowledging that he's not open a lot of times, but he still makes the catch.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like he doesn't need to be open in like the classic sense of the word. So that's a big part of it. But there was a kind of a drag route for a touchdown at North Carolina where I was just like, what the hell is North Carolina doing? Where like all the receivers ran vertically and then Mayer cut back underneath going left. That part of it, I don't understand. Like how a defense could blow that.
Well, you can't use North Carolina defense as a barometer. Probably
the problem is North Carolina. Yeah. But it's like I didn't think he was open a ton against BYU. They just threw him the ball and he went up and got it. Like that got back to what we were talking in the first segment. Pyne threw him open, especially on the 2 touchdowns, where Mayer even gave us that detailed golf analogy of it afterwards. So that's a lot of credit to Pyne there too.
That's a great analogy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did he say one iron?
Use that one.
I don't even know if there is a 1 iron, by the way. Like
there is.
That was my only problem with the analogy.
There is a 1 iron. There is a 1 iron, but I mean, I thought that was a great analogy because there are various levels of passes, and with Pyne being as accurate as he was, he was able to throw him open.
Next these are 2 questions in a row. I'm going to want to answer this first myself, actually. Go Fight Win Irish asks, Notre Dame seems to be having trouble on 3rd, 4th, and short yardage. Do they need to get more creative in play calling on those downs, as opposed to continuing to run into the teeth of the defense? On a related note, Dutter25 asks, to me, it appears Rees continues to run the same plays over and over again. Our opponents are seeing this in the film room. 3rd or 4th and short, it's run between left guard and tackle.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that the identity of this team is power football. You can't force something that they don't have. So you're going to run. You have a 230-pound running back. So yes, you're going to choose that option more often than not. I get that. Now, if they were running quarterback sneaks, that'd be a different thing. But I mean, this is the identity. 13 personnel. That's the identity of this offense. Secondly, if you don't really look at the plays, if you don't look at the 4th and 1 that failed in the red zone, then you don't understand that Matt Salerno was motioning across from right to left. Drew Pyne was at the mesh point with Estime looking right at Salerno, and his read is to pull it and throw it to Salerno because Lorenzo Styles is lined up left and he runs the cornerback off into the end zone. And the linebacker is late to Salerno. So that play was designed to throw the ball to Salerno for the easy pitch and catch touchdown, but Pyne read it wrong, which was a rarity Saturday night. But that was a great design play and a poor decision by the quarterback.
Very important point to make. They are not predictable because they, on 3rd and short and on 4th and short combined, Notre Dame passes twice as much as they run this season. Twice as much. And they are twice as successful in doing so. 8 for 16 on 3rd and 4th and short. That's 1 to 3 yards. 3 for 8 on 3rd and 4th and short running. Audric Estime, none. 0 conversions. He converted a 3rd and 4, which is not a typical running down. 8 for 16 passing. They pass twice as much. If you're scouting them to run up the middle, they're going to pass it on you twice as much as you get scouted. That's the actual number right now for people that think they're predictable.
I'm shocked, like, as I broke down the distances, that they have not attempted a run on 3rd and 3 all year, but they've thrown it 9 times.
They
are predictable. They throw it.
And they get it.
And I would say, like, on the creativity part, like, I did not like the attempted tunnel screen on 3rd and 3 at the goal line to Mayer at all.
They did that for that TD already this year, and that probably,
I just like that would be like a little too creative. Like there would be like, let's do less here.
That play. Speaking of film review, that play set up an Audric Estime first down, 1 yard touchdown run at Ohio State. A tunnel screen to Michael Mayer on 3rd and 4 from the 4, and he gained 3. So that was on film. They went right back to it.
Yeah, it looks like BYU watched that film.
Well, they did. And the guy that made the play was the guy that I was talking about all week, number 31, Max Tooley, who's a really good football player. Him and Ben Bywater are good football players. I think you can run at those guys, but if you try to do something laterally, I'm not sure that the play to Mayer falls into that category, but he made a great play.
To Dutton's point, I do think they run left in 3rd and short when they run more than they run right, but they run left more than they run right because they like
that left side.
Patterson and all. I mean, it's, there's been years where Notre Dame only ran left. The problem is they're 3 for 8. If they converted one more against BYU and kept that drive going, and one more against, was it North Carolina? If they convert those, if Drew Pyne gets his sneaker, if they hand off to Estime and he gets it, it's not as big of a deal. But Notre Dame passes on 3rd and short. Notre Dame throws touchdown passes on 3rd down and short. 2 touchdown passes this year. 3 if you count the one to Marshall. 3 touchdown passes.
So it just goes back to we have a tendency to recognize the things when they go wrong, but we don't recognize them when they go well.
Absolutely. But I mean, to say that they're predictable, people know they pass twice as much as they run on 3rd and short?
I didn't.
How many teams do that?
Yeah. I didn't actually know it was that. And I think across the board, most people don't realize that either. Question from Kicker 3399. Why does Notre Dame continue to run safety blitzes when it never seems to work?
Now we are on the subscriber question side. This is tough, actually. We've talked about this, right? I mean, the notion isn't a bad idea, but Tim, explain it, because you were talking about this pre-podcast. Like, the idea of a safety blitz is fine when everybody can do their job.
Well, yeah. I mean, so what we're saying is we generally agree with this question from this standpoint, if you run it and the other 10, well, not necessarily the other 10, but you see confusion on the part of the Notre Dame defense, then yes, it's a bad idea. I mean, if Jaden Mickey is going to react completely inappropriately to that situation. And I thought, I loved Marcus Freeman's comment about that today. He said, that's on us. That's on coaches. And he's absolutely correct. And then you go to the player and, if the player says, I didn't know what to do, then it's really on the coaching staff. So you go back and you ask and you figure out why, but it's like even the 20-yard run on 3rd and 18. If you look at pre-snap, there's confusion as to who should be where and what we should be doing. And Clarence Lewis and DJ Brown, either one of them, both of them should have made the tackle on a extremely average running back, Katoa number 4. And they didn't.
What did we say it looked like? Looked like they were deciding which one should catch the fly ball. You get him. No, you tackle. Oh, shoot.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a criticism that in theory, in general, in theory, I agree with, from the standpoint that we're seeing confusion on the back end. And if there's confusion on the back end, then you haven't taught it well enough. And that's exactly what Marcus Freeman was saying.
Yeah. If Tariq Bracy was in the game and they hit a big play, I would feel differently about the play, even if it went exactly the same way. Because I think you're putting a lot of pressure on a very young player in a big spot that you didn't have to do at that moment. And in general, I'm sort of anti-safety blitz because I feel like they never get home.
I think I'm anti-safety level safety blitz, right? Because they had brought, that's really good English. They used Ramon Henderson as like a linebacker level. He's a safety, but would blitz on a
in
safety
the box.
Blitz. Yeah, that's just because he's a safety doesn't make it a safety blitz. When you're coming from that far, and you have your reserve nickel freshman on multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, you better have it.
Come on,
you better have an unimpeded path, and that was Brandon Joseph, right?
Yeah,
he didn't even. I mean, he got picked up. He didn't even come close to it. So, I mean, this is something that
you could have seen something on film. Hey, they might safety blitz us here. It's all over the film at this point.
Right. So yeah, I mean,
we're talking about scheming against Reese. You don't think Notre Dame might run a safety blitz again in the next 2 games on 3rd and 13? Like,
hope not.
It's a problem. That's an issue. Next from Domingo? Yes, Domingo 11. Does Notre Dame have a problem with size on the interior of the defensive line? BYU seems to have run at will, especially up the middle.
Yeah, I mean that's all tied in back to Jacob Lacey, who couldn't hold weight. He was a 280 pounder, and he was. I mean, the really sad thing is he had such a great game against Kellen, and he got single digit snaps the next week, but it was a matchup issue. But we knew this was a problem going into the season. I mean, hell, even Jason Adamalola is somewhat undersized, a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
I mean, that doesn't really come into play, and that's why Rubio's playing and they're trying to get some bigger bodies in there. That's why they need Kenana to come back, because he's a legit 300 pounder. We haven't asked about him. I wonder how close he still may be. He may be still a little ways away, but that's a problem. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And then there's a lot of commentary on the linebackers. Well, if you're getting an unimpeded path through the middle of the offensive line, you've got to be a really, really good linebacker to take on a running back with a full head of steam that can cut, can put his foot in the ground and break either way. And if you're getting beat, if you're getting gashed like that at the point of attack, it's going to be that much more difficult for your linebackers to make tackles in the open field.
I would advise anyone to go back and watch BYU's final touchdown and how Gabe Rubio was just blown off the ball into JD Bertrand. That it washed out the second level of the defense, the way BYU was fired off the football. And that's like, I think Gabe Rubio has a lot of ability, but that's more of a technical learning thing for him, because he is a big dude. Like, to get thrown backward like that, that's why he's in there, to not let that happen. So it's got a ways to go there.
I did not see that exactly. I mean, I thought from watching Rubio over the course of the game, Tim, you'll let us know here soon how many snaps everybody got. Oh, he got 23. Okay. I mean, I thought by and large he did a pretty good job of holding the point of attack, but wasn't getting off blocks. And now, so Pete, you're bringing up one instance where he didn't hold the point of attack. That was a disaster. They kind of got caught on their heels because the previous play, Brooks had rushed for 15 yards, and I think they lined up pretty quickly and they're back at it. And this defense does a lot of good things. They do a lot of good things, but man, the breakdowns are awfully striking.
Yeah, that's a strange. We talked to Al Golden a couple of weeks ago, and he made the point, like, we're not where I want to be, but the number one thing, you hold teams to 20, you should win. They're holding everybody there. They're holding every team below their average passing. They're not making any plays. Like, they're tied for last in interceptions and second for last, or maybe it's the other way around. Yeah, well, they have to be tied for last in interceptions because they only have one. They're tied for last in interceptions and second for last in passes defended. I know the secondary hasn't caused a fumble. I know that Notre Dame lost one of their fumbles forced this past game to a statistical change by the coaches. So there goes that. They're going to be last in fumbles forced too. It's solid defense is about stopping the other team. Great defense is about creating havoc for the other team.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. That is a good way of putting it. Question from Wilmus 1. Do you think Lorenzo Styles is not being targeted enough? I get that we have an all-world tight end in Mayer, but Styles is by far our best receiver and is getting 2 targets and 30 yards a game on a regular basis.
I think the thing, I would like to see Lorenzo Styles get the ball more, obviously, because he can make plays, but they don't have a lot of plays in modern football other than for Michael Mayer here, where you're like, let's make sure we get Lorenzo Styles the ball a couple times right here. It's just, that's not how it's read out. You could have a play for Styles set up and then you go up to the line and that's the only thing they've taken away. And Tommy Rees does the scan offense and it's gone, right?
Yeah.
We don't know how many plays are called for Lorenzo Styles or when he's the primary, but it's just not how it works.
Boy, he made a hell of a snag on that 26-yarder.
It looks so pretty.
It was, and I mean, he just kind of plucked it. He just threw his hands down there and thump.
That might have been my favorite Pyne throw of the game, because it was like into a window where Styles was not, and then he just put it out there and let him run onto the ball. Like, that was, I'm with O'Malley. I'd like to see more Styles, but he's not to the point where this isn't like they really need to get Michael Floyd more touches.
Right. That's a good point. Because sometimes you're like, all right, we're being idiots. Let's use our best player. Quit scanning the field for stuff. Like, Lorenzo Styles right now is 2 against Ohio State. Clearly could have used more. 9 against Marshall, 5 against Cal, 6 against North Carolina, and 3 against BYU. They had 500 yards against BYU. And the only reason, I mean, unless you want to say Lorenzo Styles should be targeted for touchdowns in the red zone, there's not a lot of complaints you can have about the BYU offense and how it went, right? If you target Braden Lenzy in the end zone, I'll say you should target Lorenzo Styles in the red zone, not end zone, red zone. That would be my nitpick.
Question from DL Kel 01. Based on some of the linebacker play, why isn't Prince Colley seeing more action? He seems to make plays every time he's given an opportunity to play. And I will set this up by saying that Marcus Freeman addressed this today about Prince Colley and what may be holding him back from getting more playing time.
I actually asked this question of Coach Freeman today.
Oh, yeah, you did ask, and I'm sorry, Tim.
Yeah, because of, I think Colley has flashed. Obviously, he made a really nice play. And once again, we're going back to the I don't believe you're taking out Scottie Pippen theory, kind of, in this situation. Marcus Freeman said, I challenged him last week. Prince, you continue to build trust in practice. There is no such thing as a gamer, is what Freeman said. Your team needs you to be a great practice player. That is your answer, whether you like it or not. So don't tweet yelling at us. Don't ask us again. If you're listening to this podcast,
directed towards Marcus Freeman, because he also said it was obvious that Kaiser played a good game. He had the safety and he was named defensive player of the team. But he said Bertrand played well. Now he wasn't just, that wasn't lip service, because he said that Leofau needs to play better.
And it was not during my colleague question, which makes it relevant too. He wasn't defending that was
right.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman said that Bertrand, when he came in the second half, of course, he had to sit out the first half. He said he played well. So that's the head. And again, it wasn't coach speak, because he was somewhat critical of Leofau. Yeah, right. So I don't know what. At this point, I really don't know what to say. And I don't have any reason to defend JD Bertrand other than the coaching staff keeps running him out there and they think that he needs to be on the field. So I will say this, and I think, I think on the outset, we have a tendency to look at, he made this play, but we don't give any consideration to plays that somebody couldn't get to, unless it's somebody that you don't like Bertrand, and then you notice every one of them.
So
I know what I mean?
Sure, Tim, I'm sorry to interrupt, Pete. And Tim, you're absolutely right. Well, if Tommy Reese makes a bad play call, and he'll make bad play calls, everybody does. But JD Bertrand, any senior that shouldn't be playing anymore because he's not a freshman anymore. Look, if Jaden Mickey was named Clarence Lewis, our message board would explode during these games. Instead, he's just going to be good and he's young. Sorry, Pete. Go ahead.
I was going to go back to how Marcus Freeman answered a question that I asked about Benjamin Morrison last week, when he talked about, he was like, I don't want to go on a tangent, but like when you go out and visit these high schools, you sort of see who plays see ball, get ball, and who plays defense. Prince Colley playing from a see ball, get ball high school. Yeah. And he knew that he was going to have to cook for a while before he played here. I think he's probably had to cook longer than he wants. But I mean, the play that he made that we're like, whoa, that was see ball, get ball. Like there wasn't a whole lot to read out there. That was just like, wow, you're a superior athlete, which has very little to do with like calling a defense or getting everyone aligned. So I think I think you got to be sensitive, or at least cognizant of the plays Colley does make when we watch, and we're like, ooh, big play. Like, well, if it's just a pure athleticism play, that doesn't mean that you understand the entire defensive playbook.
Question from Jim Booney, CRS. What is your grade on the linebacker core through 5 games?
Highest for Colley in his 8 snaps. I'll go with there. No, I liked I'm surprised, actually. I don't like lumping Jack Kaiser in this, and I don't just mean because he got the game MVP. I thought he's had a couple good games. I had Bertrand rated as the 28th player coming in, which felt a little low when he won the starting job over Bo Power. But I'm surprised that Bertrand has struggled this much. I thought he would play fewer snaps. Part of that might be because of Bo Bauer, what we believe is injured. And then Leofau has been way below what I thought he would be. especially after playing well against North Carolina, that you should be able to carry that forward at this point. He's a very inexperienced senior, but you got to be able to carry it forward a little bit here. That it's a strange inconsistency. He had the pressure on the first play of the game for the pick.
Yes, he did.
You get up to a start like that. It's just, I think Marcus Freeman is challenging him by saying he's got to play better. I think J.D. Bertrand, I want to say this so people don't think we believe J.D. Bertrand's an All-American. I think J.D. Bertrand has to play way better in space. Get better teams against J.D. Bertrand, and it's going to look like it did when he was injured last year.
I think that teams know that if you get Notre Dame's linebackers moving horizontally, you got them at a disadvantage. So that's like, they're not going to get more athletic during the course of the season. I think they are who they are. I think Kaiser has played well. I'm a Jack Kaiser supporter, I guess. Leafau I thought was just going to be way better, and it hasn't clicked on for him. I don't really have a great reason. And it's like with Bertrand, like there was the option run that Hall ran that went for, I don't know, 15, 20 yards or something. Like that's just like they got a better athlete in a better position than what Notre Dame had to throw at him there. It's not JD Bertrand's fault per se on that like he wasn't able to make that play at the line of scrimmage.
But that is his grade. If you're grading the play, it's not JD Bertrand's not fast enough. He didn't get there. It's
just a good matchup.
Right.
BYU created a good matchup.
Yeah, and Bauer made that big hit inside the 5.
Yeah.
But did we see how much did we see of him after that?
Maybe he hurt himself further.
That's what that's kind of what I'm thinking. Now again, I don't keep we all kind of keep our various stats, and mine is not snaps, and so I don't know at that point.
6 snaps.
Oh wow. Okay.
And
So
he started the game too.
Yeah, so he probably got banged up on that. That was a big collision.
He also gave a foul flash. Did you see that?
Oh, no, I didn't see that. Yeah. But again, Leafau, Tim,
it's a personal foul, or you get a technical or something.
Tim, you mentioned Leafau against North Carolina, but again, that was in attack mode.
You're right.
And that's when he absolutely is at his best, and he
then plays somebody else once in a while. That is what people are saying, I think.
No, I get it, and if the answer, I mean, if Collie practices better, they'll put him out there.
Yeah, Benjamin Morrison practice as well, obviously, because he's playing.
Right. So there was also Kaiser got caught in a read on
early first
Jaron Hall, but
right?
yeah, and I thought my first reaction was they know that Hall might have a bit of a shoulder issue, and so he went for the pitch man instead, maybe thinking the Hall wasn't necessarily going to take it upfield, and he did. I don't know.
There was no one to help Kaiser out there.
No, exactly. That was a choose and lose situation right there. No doubt about it. Question from JP Wirt 70. How many times do you think we will hear Brandon Joseph's name called other than during a punt return? So far this season, he's been a no-show. Who forced the fumble?
Well, technically nobody, because Notre Dame was taking it away from him. But Brandon Joseph forced the fumble. It's being removed, by the way, from the stats. So.
Well, I mean, it was Notre Dame didn't recover, but it was still for. I know DJ Brown was there. It was kind of hard looking at the replay. I mean, I think it was Joseph. I mean, he did force a fumble. He did force a fumble Saturday. But
I think Joseph. I'm surprised Joseph hasn't made a couple more plays. Right?
I would agree.
Yeah, especially the way he started out knocking Jackson Smith and Jigba out of the game.
Yeah, no kidding.
That is a play. Actually, that's as big as an interception.
No kidding. But I was always the guy that Jalen with Alohi Gilman. Jalen, help me.
Jalen Elliott.
I was always saying that, because their last year it was like, oh, they're not making any plays. Well, Notre Dame was also like 5th in the country versus yards per pass attempt.
Right.
And I interpreted that as that they're steering clear of some people too. So, I don't, especially with a safety, I don't know that I always equate it to how many plays he actually makes per se. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. You're removing, they prevent a play from being attempted.
Right. Correct. So I don't know that that's necessarily true, but
analytically speaking, because I think as much as you can make fun of Pro Football Focus's grades, they do have stats that are official. He's been targeted 7 times in 5 games, very low. Has given up 3 catches, 1 in the last 3 games. The notable catch he gave up was a touchdown against Marshall. You recall the 3rd down touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
So he's only been
play,
targeted 7 times.
The longest play he's given up was 16 yards. That was against Marshall. He has given up 7 total yards he's given up 7 total yards in all 4 other games: Ohio State, Cal, UNC, and BYU. So he's doing something. He has 1 pass breakup, no interceptions. That's what people remember. I will honestly say I thought he'd have a pick or 2 because he's such a ball hawk. He's probably doing better than he's getting credit for. He is not making impact plays all over the field, though, right?
There's a really easy solution to the answer to questions like this about how guys are playing. We just need to approach the coaching staff and get their grades from each game. Can you? You think we can pull that off?
That would not go under the guise of not criticizing players if they hand us the grades, because there's some critiques.
I would just say that if the question is like Notre Dame safety play, what's up with player X, I wouldn't start with Brandon Joseph.
You make a valid point, Pete.
That's like
column that discusses that once in a while.
Yeah. All right, we got a long question here from Denver Maximus. Was there a QB battle in the offseason, or was Tyler Buchner given the nod because of his supposed, quote, higher upside, and he gave Reese the ability to run the offense he wanted to run? There were times you guys brushed off the idea there was a QB battle and made it seem like it was never close, and Pyne was well behind Buchner.
I started this one out, so go ahead, Pete, and I will chime in.
Yeah, we brushed it off because it was being brushed off. Like that was just like
by people that are in a position to brush it off.
Yes, the brusher. So this is, I think, that probably as surprising it is to us, it's maybe even more surprising to people that get to see practices every day, that saw every spring practice, every rep. Drew, I think we often forget that players can get better during the season. They rarely get this better, but that's what happened. There was not evidence happening in August that this was in the cards for Drew Pyne.
This is a great time to bring this up for the last time. Ian Book was considered a starter by Chip Long over Brandon Wimbush when that season started. Brian Kelly said, no, we need Wimbush to start against Michigan. It was genius by Brian Kelly. He's right, because that would have been a very hard game for Wimbush to win, the way we saw for Book to win.
Yes.
So by the time Book took over, even though it was, he's 3-0 and taking over, it was coming, right?
Yes, 100% that is accurate.
They were 3-0. This wasn't coming, other than if they were 0-3,
right.
coming. If they lost again with Buchner, it might have been coming. But yeah, give credit to Drew Pyne. As I said to start this podcast off, Tommy Reese said at one point, we looked out there, saw Tyler Buchner doing stuff in practice, and said, this is what we want our offense to look like. Does that mean upside's considered? I would certainly hope so, because he's showing what he can do at his best. They had to coach better to get him out of his look. Tyler Buchner, this is an unanswerable question. Pete and I talked about it walking out. If Tyler Buchner had an offensive line playing like this with 3 running backs, they were playing this well, and everything was gelling, I think he would look better. Now, if Tyler Buchner comes back tomorrow, Drew Pyne should start and would.
Well, yeah, absolutely. At this point, Pyne has to lose a job, and I don't see that happening. Maybe Drew Pyne's a gamer.
No, there's no gamers.
Nope.
You were at the press conference too.
No, and I having been in coaching, I generally agree with that. If you can't do it in practice, you're not going to do it in games.
I think if you
don't tell me Joe Montana,
exclude some pros from the situation, right?
Okay, all right, okay. Joe Montana is a Hall of Famer. I don't know for an absolute fact that he didn't practice well, but that was always the story. Yeah, I bet he did too. But look, but you understand where I'm coming from here. I think when I say that, there are some intangible qualities about Drew Pyne. The guy just absolutely believes that he's going to succeed. We used to say he talked a better game than he played. And it wasn't that long ago that somebody in the know said something very similar to that. So, but there are some intangible qualities with Drew Pyne that can help take his game to another level. And he's more accurate than we thought he would be. And he's, I keep bringing up confidence. I even brought up with Pyne after the game, but I think it's more about experience in the game slowing down, which is a real thing that happens to athletes. And I think that's happening to Drew Pyne. And whether anybody wants to fulfill my question or not, I do think that with Drew Pyne, there's a level of comfort for the offensive line. And I can't believe that it's just total coincidence that the offense goes from sucking to being really good at the exact same time that Drew Pyne took over as a starter.
Not the exact.
Well, not at the exact same time.
Not the exact same time. It took a whole. That was not a really good offense.
The first half of Cal still happened.
One quarter and one series. One quarter and one series.
I mean, they were.
It was a pretty bad quarter and a pretty bad series.
I believe I used the term "nervous Nelly." He was a nervous Nelly when.
Yeah, he was. People, and actually, that's not just our observation. We've been told by Notre Dame football players. Drew Pyne was nervous in that.
Yeah.
So people get mad at us for saying, guys, people hated me when I said that they were wetting their pants in Miami. And then, of course, that phrase came directly from inside the locker room. We were wetting our pants in Miami. So I thought, maybe you guys should calm down a little bit.
I mean, we make some stuff up, but not all of it.
No, not all. We hear some things once in a while, especially this one.
Irish guy. Hold on. We don't make anything up. Let me just.
We're wrong. We're wrong sometimes. How's that?
We're wrong sometimes. Yeah.
Like the Marshall game. We were wrong about that. Irish guy, 82-82. Why do people expect perfection out of this squad? It's a good question.
It is a good question, and also, I thought about this. I thought about this on the way to the press gathering with Marcus Freeman today. Well, first of all, of course, fans only look at one side, not the other. They don't respect the opponent. They don't give much consideration to the opponent. I also think that in many cases they don't respect the game and the degree of difficulty that comes with it, and the expectation that your team should do better than the other team, while the expectation of fans on that side is the exact opposite. And that in every game there's a winner and a loser.
It didn't used to be. I like that.
Damn it, we used to have ties. We could say that. But because I think a lot of times there isn't enough credence given to the fact that playing this game and being successful is extremely difficult to do, particularly because the other team is trying to do the same darn thing.
I would agree with all that. I think that the games being in HD and replays being so readily available probably doesn't help because you really can granularly pick apart everything very quickly. And it's not hard to find guys when they make mistakes. So we fixate on that. Heck, I mean, what have we talked about on the show? Quite a bit of like Notre Dame shortcomings coming off back-to-back impressive wins. So I don't know why people thought this squad would be perfect. I'm assuming there's some sarcasm in the question here. There are teams where that level of expectation is probably appropriate, but this Notre Dame team sure is not one of them.
Yeah, I think oftentimes the solution is take him out.
Yes.
And coaches don't. That's not, in some instances, that's a solution or the next move to make. But if you took out players every time they made a mistake, you'd run out of players.
Yeah, there's definitely instances where taking a guy out is your. It's not usually the first option though. That's the best part of the way to say it.
It's what happened with Benjamin Morrison and Clarence Lewis, right? They're like, well, this other guy's better. We're going to play him instead.
Joe Alt getting in there. It was by injuries, but Joe Alt, or I guess Andrew Kristofic last year going in for Zeke Correll. That was we got to make a change. That worked out. But it's the perfection thing. Yeah, it's a great question because he was doing some tongue in cheek, and a lot of fans and analysts expect too much, right? We analyze every play. Fans get mad at every little thing that happens, especially the offense and offensive coordinator, because I go into my grave telling you that people think they can call plays on offense, but not on defense in football. It just seems like you can call plays. Why not hand the ball to Estime here? Why not throw here? Just do a play action pass. Don't go under center there. Don't be in a shotgun on 4th and 1. Why are we running pistol on 4th and 1? Why would you there's so many things to say why. because they worked in practice 50 times. That's probably why they ran it, right?
That's exactly right. I feel like this podcast has been a marathon. Am I right, Jack? I'm going to wrap it up here with this question from Bourbon Pro 1973. After starting 0-2, Notre Dame could be on the cut. Have we mentioned Stanford? Notre Dame plays Stanford this week.
Not a Stanford breakfast.
Didn't we just the moral of the last question was we don't get enough credence to the opponents?
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, here's the Stanford thing. I think Notre Dame could rush for 300 yards this weekend. Bourbon Pro 1973. After starting 0-2, Notre Dame could be on the cusp of 6-win run leading up to Clemson. What's more likely? 10-2, 9-3, or 7-5?
9-3.
I think 9-3 as well.
So eliminate 9-3. What's more likely?
Okay, my first choice would be 4-2 because I'm in that phase. They're 3-2.
You're allowed to look ahead. You're not.
I think
right.
I think they will win this weekend and be 4-2. But I would say 9-3. But
did he leave out 8-4 for?
Yes, exactly.
Make it difficult.
Yeah. That's why it's a good question. Well done.
Yeah.
So okay, 10-2 or 7-5, more likely.
Ooh.
So they're underdogs twice. Well, no, they're not actually. Right? They're going to be right now that we've heard they're favored over Clemson. They bettable.
Yeah, there's a lot of water under the bridge between now and then.
But you can bet it now. So
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I lost.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'm almost 100%. I shouldn't even say that. I think Notre Dame will be 4-2. We'll deal with the rest of this a little bit later. We'll be back. We are back on schedule, right? Back on schedule for a Thursday podcast when we will talk a whole bunch more about Notre Dame versus Stanford. Thanks for joining us. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.